You're listening to 94.4 FM Salford City Radio, the Friday Sports Show.
So you're listening to Salford City Radio 94.4 FM, the Friday Sports Show with your host, Jimmy Petruzzi. We bring you news from the local area and around the world, and the aim of the show is to increase awareness of different sports and increase participation. And also, we've been very fortunate on the show to have featured some great athletes, some of the world's best athletes, sports people, footballers, people who work in sport across a broad range of areas. We also have a segment where we speak to some of the world's most influential people in the field of psychology and related fields. And today we have a very special guest. We also on the show feature international perspectives. We speak to people from all around the world who give us an insight into sporting life and life and things in general, their experiences, and certainly in Salford we've got some great sporting clubs in the area, not too far away from United and City, and obviously Salford Football Club that are rising. We've got the Rugby League Club, and today's guest I think you'll really enjoy listening to. He's going to give an honest and open account on his playing career, coaching career, the impact of lockdown and mental health. At the moment, our guest is in Australia, and at the moment they're in lockdown as we do the pre-record, so there might be references to training that we touch on that, so just to make sure you're aware of that. But we really want to welcome our guest. He's had a fantastic playing career. He's played for teams like Canterbury, Marrickville, Heidelberg United, Hurstville City, Dulwich Hill, Fraser Park, Stanmore. He's also had a great, he's continuing his career in coaching and managing, but he's managed teams like Sydney Olympic, assistant manager, Sydney United manager. At the moment, he's also been assistant at Bankstown City, but at the moment he's assistant at Club Marconi. And our listeners will probably be familiar with some of the players at Club Marconi and some of the players that our guest is going to. Some of the clubs that our guest is going to talk about have produced, that have played actually in England, so we'll probably be familiar with that. But Peter Papoythis, we really want to welcome to the show. Great to have you on board.
Thanks for having me, and good morning. I guess it's over there. It's morning for you guys. It's evening over here for us.
It is indeed. It is It is indeed, Peter. So it's
good morning.
Yeah. So good evening for you guys. It's really kind of you to join us, and I think it's make for an interesting conversation. And if we just start from the beginning, Peter, what inspired you to go into football? What was your inspiration to take up football?
Well, in Australia, it's a diverse sporting field. Like we got every sport here to play, and football, it isn't your main sport in Australia. Like in Sydney, New South Wales, where I'm from, NRL is your main sport, other than cricket, of course, and swimming, tennis. There's all sorts of sports here. But like the local field in my area had a soccer field, and my dad took me down there and he said, why don't you have a go? I tried all the different sports. Strangely enough, I wasn't really that good at football. My friends were, and I really wanted to be as good as them. And I gave away playing cricket and rugby league, which I was okay. I was pretty good at those sports, and I fit in well in those games, but I wasn't so technically gifted in soccer, as they call it here, but my friends were, and I think it was my friends who dragged me across to the football, that their passion about it, and then I just went, well, I want to be better at football.
Yeah.
And that's how I got into it, I think. Yeah.
And did you, like, in the beginning, imagine that you would sort of go on and play, and you've played for a number of great clubs, sort of, mentioned there?
I tell you what. When I was young, a friend of ours, he was playing at Sydney Olympic, and he was playing with Jimmy Petruzzi, who was, back 30 years, was an Australian international. He was a star player, and he came over to our friend's house in a barbecue, and I went, oh my God, it's like Jimmy Petruzzi. He's here in the barbecue with us, and we were looking at him, and he was only a couple of years older than us, but he'd already played 5 seasons first grade. He was a star of the game. He was Greek like we are, and just, like I gravitated to him. When we started talking, and we became friends. And we'd go to watch him play, and I just thought, gee, I'd love to play at a higher level. I couldn't imagine I was going to, but when you have a friend who's playing for Australia, and he's like really cool and humble, he wasn't a show off. And then at the end of that year, he went to Greece to play for AEK, Athens, and it just sort of like spurred us young guys on. Like, if Jim's made it, like maybe we can make it, and we try harder, we trained harder. Those days there was no internet and Facebook and Instagram. You were at the park, and Sydney's full of parks. I mean, you ride your bike to a park and you find a game, you play. Yeah. That's how I got my feeling that I wanted to play at a higher level through him. Actually, we're still friends, to be honest.
So it's like a sort of role model for you. Sort of saw him and thought, okay.
Yeah. And then I was say into my 15, 16-year-old, and I was playing for Sydney City, which was they were the best NSL team, the first grade, but I was in the 15s and 16s. We weren't that good, but at training we could actually see them. They were just at the end of the field, and you could see, John Cosmina, you probably heard of these guys. They're like they were Socceroos, and Joe Watson, who was from Scottish background, he ended up being my coach for a long time, and we'd stay back at training, and I would never leave. I'd just stay back and just walk home, and just couldn't wait to watch guys like Jerry Gomez, or Alex Robertson, Alex Ferguson. It was a British backed team. They were like Scottish and English, and they would have these massive six-a-side games, and as a kid you just would love watching them. They were my role models to spur me on to play at a higher level, I think.
No, brilliant. And in your own sort of career, I mean, from a playing point of view, what would you say would be the highlights for you? What sort of things sort of stand out for you when you sort of think back, and are there any sort of...
Look, I think everyone will tell you playing NSL was, and I didn't play a real long career of NSL, but I did play at Arbia, at Marriott Olympic, and Heidelberg in the NSL, very briefly, but they were great times because you got to play against the best of the best in our country. But for me, I think when I was playing in the State League, winning trophies with my mates, with guys I grew up with, like it was a division lower, NPL 1, it was semi-pro, we went to work the next day, everyone had a different job. After the game, you'd have a few beers, and you'd be talking, oh, geez, we've got to go to work tomorrow. Where in NSL, not everyone had to work. You worked if you wanted to. It wasn't fully professional yet. But I had my best times playing NPL, where I won trophies. I won a double at Stanmore, Dulwich Hill, and I won trophies at Minotaurs, and they might not sound like big clubs to most people, but when you're playing with your best friends you grew up with, and you're picking up trophies, and you're getting paid, and you're travelling together, there's no better feeling than singing when you're winning. I just had they were my best times. I had great times in the NSL, don't get me wrong, but it was a lot more professional, hard-nosed, win at all costs, result-driven games. Really, it was tough. It was tougher for me. It wasn't as enjoying as playing with your friends in a semi-pro environment, winning, getting trophies every year, medals, and that's what you really play for. I don't have 1 cent saved from football, not 1 cent, but I do have all the medals. I do have all the trophies. I've kept them all. I gave them to my dad, and when he passed away, I had to clear up his house, and I thought, oh my God, look what I've collected here. There's just so many things, and he never threw anything away. Kept all my jerseys, my boots, my trophies, my individual awards, photos, framed pictures, and I just thought, that were the good times when I was playing.
Yeah, that's interesting, and yes, I mean, you can't put a price on sentiment, like he says. I mean, it's incredible. There's the memories as well. And in terms of your own sort of perception, Peter, where do you sort of see? There's probably not many people better sort of qualified than you to sort of say where the game is in terms of when you played, and you're obviously coaching now as well. And what would you say the standard is? The standard the same, different? I know it's hard to compare different generations.
I have my own take on it. Like, a lot of people will say one thing: the NSL was better than the A-League, or the A-League is better than the NSL. The NSL players were very skillful, very gifted. They played great football on terrible pitches, on subpar paddocks. Like, they were terrible fields. When you look back on the video footage and you see some of these gifted players, if they had the opportunity to play where they don't have to go to work, where nowadays the A-League, the pitches are a carpet, they train every day, they've got doctors and physios and recovery sessions and sports science medicine, they've got the lot. Back in my day, or the days when I was playing, those players, they didn't have that, and they had to go to work the next day. And some guys were bricklayers, panel beaters, working, grinding away to make a living. I think if they were playing in the A-League, they would be like on the top end of money earners. Some of the players like that I've played with and against. They don't make gifted, skillful, creative players the way we used to. I think they've veered away from street football, park football, letting yourself be creative, where now it's a lot more structured game. There's no loose players on the field like when we had liberos, a spare man at the back, or a spare man, a number 10 who never defended. Those days are over. Like, you watch your Lionel Messi, he makes more tackles than anyone. Some days on the field, that kid, he just runs and runs and runs, then backs it up and scores goals all day.
Absolutely.
It's a totally different game when we were playing back in the 80s and 90s to the current players right now. Like in NSL and A-League, it's two different eras, way different, way different. Way different.
Yeah, no, it's interesting stuff. And in terms of the sort of teams that you managed, you've been assistant, like Marconi now, and what would you say in terms of what was your experience like, Peter, in sort of, you've obviously got a vast amount of experience playing and also life experience. I think that's one thing sometimes that, you mentioned there, it's a big thing. I think we sometimes don't appreciate life experience, like you said, someone being a panel beater, a bricklayer, and that's life experience. I think that you can sort of take into...
Well, in where I coach in the NPL 1 with Pete, we spent 7 years at Bankstown, and we won a couple of doubles and cups, and that team there won a lot of trophies, and we were young. Pete was still playing. He was in his 30s. He was player coach, and I was by myself on the bench just learning my trade. I was a gun-ho, fearless. I made subs when I really thought was with my gut feel, and Pete would do gut feeling subs, and we won, and we weren't methodical. We were really relaxed young guys, just having a go, enjoying ourselves. And the players we had, some of them were actually your friend. They were my friends, and I really loved them, and I wanted them to be successful. And some of them were young and young kids who were good enough to play A-League. A-League hadn't started, and they were working. They were going to work every day. That was a great team. That Bankstown team was a great team. When that era ended, and we moved to Olympic, we took 7 players with us, and that Sydney Olympic side had finished the year before second last. We won the comp with them. We won the double, and we won a pre-season cup. Then we won a Brett Emerton Cup, which I'm sure you know who Brett Emerton is.
Absolutely, yeah.
Blackburn.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
He was playing for Sydney FC at the time. They called it a Brett Emerton Cup because he was a Sydney Olympic junior and played all his football, most of his football at Sydney Olympic, I think. He was a star of both clubs. We actually beat them. We won that cup, that as well, the Brett Emerton Cup. We went to Bob Janes Stadium in Melbourne and beat them in the opening of their stadium. We had a successful run at Olympic as well. They were a pleasure to coach, those guys. Things change, you get older, and Pete Pete had opened a new business. Myself, I had children with my wife. We were struggling to have kids. Things fell out at Olympic after 3 years. We parted ways amicably. We had to part ways. We weren't really happy with the situation, and we had a little break. I got on with having a family, and he got on with his businesses and growing up his kids. His kids are successful. One of them plays now at the Mariners. And then we waited until the Marconi job came along. We had a lot of offers, but the Marconi job really, if you're in Australia and you're not coaching A-League, is something that as a young kid I always looked up at Marconi as the Palace. They call it the Palace for a reason. It is a great club. The setup is like a professional football club in an NPL, like in the division lower.
Yeah.
If there was a B League or a second division, Marconi would fit in nicely straight away.
The infrastructure's there, yeah.
The infrastructure's there. We've got 4 or 5 backfields, a gymnasium as big as a shopping centre.
Brilliant.
The club it's a beautiful club with restaurants, and it's just a fantastic facility. I couldn't speak more highly of the club I work for. Yeah.
That's brilliant. And in terms of we sort of mentioned earlier, at the moment, obviously the last 18 months or so around the world there's been challenges, and mental health we know in sport and in football has been well documented, and
it's been a tough time, I think, for all ages. I work at a Hensley athletic field, right? So it's an athletic field, but it's a soccer field as well. So it's Hakoa's home ground, Sydney, the old Sydney City. So not only do I work with football, I coach, I run a business out of their ground. It's like a kiosk, and I watch all the games there, and I watch all the athletics and the kids, and if I find someone a real athletically gifted player, or, like I try to help them out, go to another club, or help them find a club with Hakoa or a team, or use my contacts, as they say. So you can see the kids are struggling a little. Like when we came back from our first lockdown and we went back to carnivals, running carnivals and school carnivals and football, they were nervous. You could see that parents were edgy. Everyone knows who I am because I've been there 11 years. So everyone would come up and say hello to me. Some don't want to shake your hand. Some want to. They don't know whether it's right or wrong. It's a tough time at the moment, and kids aren't going out anywhere. They're cooped up in their houses. Can you imagine when we were kids and our parents saying to us, "You can't go to the park.
Wow,
you can't ride your bike." Like I've got a bike inside my house. Right, I ride my bike inside the house. I've got to have some sort of physical workout. Imagine being a kid where you can't go and meet up with your mates. And
difficult, absolutely,
Yeah. No, I ring all my players at Marconi. Most of them are adults and have partners, or they're married, or they're not the ones you need to really worry about. It's the single guys. You want to have a chat to them who have not been able to go to work, or they're university students and they can't get to uni. They have to do everything online. Your motivation, it goes, and then they start thinking too much. They ask you questions, and you can feel that they're struggling. Everyone, all different age groups are struggling in some certain way.
Absolutely.
So I said on my social media pages, and I said, if anyone's really struggling, I'm here for you to just give me a call or a chat. I'd rather listen to you all day long than go to your funeral.
Absolutely,
and you know what? I got phone calls. I got text messages. I got messages, WhatsApp messages. And most of them weren't really in trouble. They wanted someone just to talk to. I go, if you can't speak to your family, speak to a friend, someone you think you could trust, and is going to keep it to himself and help you through this tough time.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to say who I spoke to naturally right here on the
No, of course, yeah.
Of these, a lot of these guys, older guys, were well-educated people in families, or like maybe had a divorce and were starting to question themselves, why am I on my own? And asking me what I thought. And I'm no doctor or I'm no psychiatrist, but I have the experience of living life and traveling, and being overseas, coaching, playing. I've seen a lot, and some of these guys, all they need is someone just to talk
to speak to,
an hour, half an hour. Some of them never ring back, and they just, sometimes you see them on the socials and they message you, hey Flea, how are you? Everything cool? I'm cool. And then there's others where late at night you might get a message, and I leave my phone on just in case that you get that phone call, that one phone call where someone's really struggling and you might have to help them out. I've lost friends through suicide and friends when I was younger who got mixed up in the wrong crowds and went to drugs after football, not knowing who to turn to, and they didn't have any football, and you lose good people just by not keeping an eye out on them, and you're not supposed to know what's going on or what's wrong, but if you sometimes leave it out there and say you need someone to chat to, you could save someone without even knowing it.
Absolutely, and in terms of the sort of team at Marconi, Peter, what's it been like, sort of the transition? Obviously, it's lockdown again now, and you mentioned you keep in touch with the players, and
I'll tell you what's happened over the last 18 months to nearly 2 years. The first year, we were running first before the first lockdown. We were coming first. I think it was 4 games, we were first, right? No one we'd never seen a pandemic, so we honestly thought it was going to be a couple of weeks, and then it went more and more, and then we lost 10 weeks, 12 weeks. The competition was rebooted, and it started from 0 points. So we all went back to 0, and it was an 11-game comp. But then, you had 10 weeks off. We had to try and get them ready after 2 weeks. Personally, I think my players, they were gutted that they were leading the comp, and it was back to 0, where other states just continued with the points that they had. They continued on. Our state, we brought West Wanderers into our league. Sutherland decided to pull out, so it was a little bit different, and they had to go back to 0. The decision to go back to 0 was probably the correct one, but for our players, they didn't feel right about it, and then you could see that they dropped their heads a little bit, and it was a mental job trying to they won't admit to it, but I believe that it affected them. It affected them. Then the season panned out with a few injuries, didn't go our way. We didn't win anything, and the season was over, and we thought, okay, this pandemic is over, it's gone. But same thing happened this year again. 5-6 games to go, we've fallen into this lockdown again, and I feel for mainly the younger players who their development is lost. It's 2 years where they can't go to the park and train one-on-one every single day of the week. It gets boring. Some of them plough into their work or their studies. They put on weight. The motivation, it goes, and it's difficult for them. It's difficult trying to motivate young kids to go to and train on their own in their backyard. At the moment, in our area, you're not allowed to leave your house.
Wow.
Not in my area, you're allowed. In my area, you can leave to walk and to exercise, but in some of the west areas, like where in Fairfield, where Marconi is, it's a stricter lockdown. The rules are a little bit tighter. They've tightened in my area, but those kids out there, they can't go and play a 4-on-4 at the park. They can't do anything.
Wow.
They've got to just mentally get themselves ready at home.
Yeah,
we're in a tough period at the moment.
And for yourself as a coach, Pete, I mean, that's sort of really. Obviously, you mentioned there, and you sort of certainly, go above and beyond the remit as a coach. I think it's fantastic that you're there for the players and for people, and if there's more people like yourself in the world, but it's everyone to their own, the way they are. But the point being,
everyone has a different style.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
But for me, it comes easy
Mm.
to talk to my players on a friendly, like a friendship sort of relationship is what I'm trying to get at. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Like the other day I had to release 5 players. Right, they were too old to play 20s
Mm.
and just not ready to play first team football. They need to be going to a club where they're going to play first team football, right? And sitting on the bench at Marconi won't help them in their development. So I had the 5 phone calls I had to make. You know, difficult when you have to release good kids. They're good enough, but there's just not enough room and budget and your team. You can only keep a certain amount of players and spend a certain amount of money.
Absolutely,
so I've had to chat with these kids, and at the back of my mind, I'm thinking, like, I hope they're going to be okay. But all 5 of them were very, very strong-minded, and they all agreed that they need to go play first-team football. They were all very thankful for the conversation. And I said to them, if you ever need to talk to me, and I'm here always for you. I've known you since you were 17, and some of you longer. And you just got to play first-team football right now. You can't be staying at Marconi because we're a big club and be on a bench. You need to and some of them even want to go a division or 2 lower and play 20, 30 games, 40 games straight. They said, and then maybe I'm a chance to come back. I go, yeah, of course you are. Of course you are. We don't have a loan system here like in England where you can loan players out for a year, like United loans out Lingard or Shanabi.
Yeah.
We can't loan them out. There's no such thing as loaning out in Australia. Yeah. These kids go out there and it's hard. Some of them are shy. They don't want to ring anyone, and they ring me and they go, "Can you help me find a club?" I go, "Yeah, I'll do my best. I'll try to find you a club that you fit in." It was a hard thing letting these 5 kids go, but it's a part of your job as a coach. Some coaches are different. Some clubs are different. They just send you a letter and a thank you and all the best, and we wish you all the best. Thank you for your services. I like to do it a little bit different. I think you've got to, in nowadays, you need to talk to the kids, let them know what they need to work on, let them understand where they're at in their career and where they're at in their development. Back in my day, I remember being released from Apia Leichhardt in 1988. 1987, we won everything, the club. They were the best team in the league. They held the record for most wins in a row. And I was just a young guy. I was 18, and I was a part of it, but I didn't really play. And I'm so lucky. Look where I am. And then, training. I got asked to go into the office, and the head coach said to me, "I'd love to keep you, but you got to go and play, Pete. You got to go and play. You're going to get stuck behind Arno Bertogna and Charlie Yankos. He's the captain of Australia." I go, yeah. So I understand these kids that if you don't tell them, give them some guidance on what to do. If you just give them the good old "thanks for coming," you're not required anymore. You lose them. Why lose these kids to the game? They should be playing, even if they drop a division or play Division 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Nothing hard. There's no harm in playing in NPL 2 or like in England Conference League, and you guys, they can earn so much money playing football over there.
Absolutely, yeah, and enjoy the game too. I think that's the key as well, so that you find your level.
Stay out of trouble.
Absolutely, yeah. You find your level, and that's all anyone can do. And in terms of yourself, Pete, I mean, obviously, you sort of, from a coaching point of view, there for the players, and I can imagine it's been challenging from a coaching point of view. Obviously, the guidelines, you stick to the guidelines of the pandemic and training and keep in touch with the players. And how do you keep yourself motivated, Peter, if you don't mind me asking, in terms of, there's a lot to do.
I get asked this question a lot. Right? I have a little theory, right? So I've been training a lot with the head conditioning coach of our club, right? He's a friend of mine, and his name's Brett Studman. And I said I'll set out to do something. So I said I want to maybe do 500 sessions with you, you know. And we started at 100, got to 200. I started documenting everything. I'm not the fittest looking guy, but I'm quite strong. I'm into deadlifting, powerlifting,
brilliant,
bike riding, assault bike riding. And I just try to train 3 to 4 times a week, which allows me to eat whatever I want because I love cooking. So my wife and I, we share the cooking. She cooks a bit better than I do, but if I don't train, if I don't focus on something, being in lockdown where I've renovated, I've done a lot of renovating around the house, homeschooling, that takes up time as well. Having kids to homeschool is a difficult challenge, I think. A lot of my friends my age, their kids are all grown up, so they don't have kids at home, and they're ringing me like, we got to have, what's happening, you want to talk? I said, hey, it's school time. From 9:30 to 3 o'clock. I've got school here. I'm a school teacher now.
I'm
trying to keep myself motivated that way. I set myself some goals, next year's season, what I'm planning to build with Pete, with our team, where we want to come in that division and what we want to win, what we want to accomplish, And I try to keep busy. If you don't keep busy, I think your head starts ticking and thinking, too much.
Absolutely.
I try to stay busy. I think that's where people fall into mental health issues or depression, anxiety. I've suffered a little bit myself when I was younger. I sort of just didn't set myself too many goals and just went along the way every day trying to just have fun. And then I started thinking too much, and thinking can eat you alive, I believe. So I set myself some ideas on what I want to do in my life and go for it. And I don't hold back. I'm at 995 sessions. I've got 5 to go.
Awesome.
I set my new goal. That's taken me 5 years, nearly 5 years. Yeah.
No, brilliant.
Through 2 pandemics.
No, that's I think that's inspirational. In terms, we sort of hear everyday stories, and in terms of like the challenges that people. You mentioned there, obviously, running a business and a family and coaching and these sort of things for me are sort of it's really a lot of people. The storm. We're all in different boats. There's a storm there, but it's sort of I think that's an interesting perspective for people to think. Okay, can I sort of set little goals for myself, targets for myself, and that can help.
The other thing with the lockdowns for me, if we're told we're going into lockdown for 3 months, in that 3 months I'll plan.
Yes.
I'll plan what I'm going to do in that 3 months. For us in Sydney, it's been a little bit tougher where we've never experienced the way you guys did. So every day we get a news bulletin, and it changes. We're staying for another 2 weeks, and we're going for another 2 weeks. I find that is what's hurting people mentally.
Yeah.
Me, I'm a tough, mentally strong guy. I can handle anything. But if you keep moving the goalposts, it sort of affects people. And even me, a tough guy, an old guy like me who's got a strong mental constitution. I don't understand the keep moving. If you say stay in lockdown 6 months, I'm happy with that. I'll start planning. Every week, every 2 weeks is what's really hurting.
Yeah, and absolutely. Yes, that's a great. That's an important point you've made there, Peter. Certainly, the way the brain works, it needs a duration pathway outcome, and I've looked at some of the research in terms of the brain and the uncertainty in terms of not knowing, and on top of that, obviously, there's all the other uncertainty too. So it does certainly take its toll, I think, on sort of people psychologically. That's for sure. That's a key point. But in saying that, I think I suppose there's no easy solutions, to sort of complex issues, and I think, like you've mentioned there, supporting each other and being there for each other is the key. And do you sort of, in terms of like Marconi, you mentioned there, I mean, obviously, certain things you're not going to sort of share in terms of the goals and vision, but Can you give us maybe an idea in terms of where you sort of see when sort of you can start training again, obviously, and start moving forward? What sort of vision do you have, Peter, for Marconi, and just keep building on the good work that you've done there, or? Look,
I have certain goals that are set every year, and very, very rarely they change, right? So my real goals are, we definitely want to win a competition. We definitely want to win the grand final. And we definitely want to go into the FFA Cup. That's where you get to play against the A-League teams. There's a cup during the year. We won it 2 years ago. It's called the Waratah Cup, which is a prestigious trophy in our division. I've been lucky enough to win it with 2 different clubs, and then it's a trophy that you always want to chase because it's midweek. You get to play young guys. My other goals these days have changed from when I was a player and a younger coach. These days I like wanting to produce more younger players to play first grade. At the beginning I was more trophy driven, hungry to win more success, win trophies. But nowadays when I see a young guy busting his backside to get into the first team, and then they make it into the first team, and then you're standing next to him on the sideline and he's about to go on for his first game, you look at him and you go, all right, man, go out there and have some fun. And the kid, he just looks at you like he's ready to pounce. He's like a lion, he's dying to get out there. Those things I enjoy the most. If someone says to me, what do you enjoy the most at football? It's giving a young kid his debut. That's the ultimate for me. Because I've been around teams that have won a lot of trophies, and I enjoy that, don't get me wrong, and the club needs to have success every year. But if you produce good young players, your club will always be successful.
Absolutely.
Will always be successful.
Build a strong foundation.
We've had to let go a lot of good young kids to A-League clubs over the years, and I'm so happy for them. Even our current coach, his son now plays for the Mariners. He was a player in our team, and I always used to whisper to him on the side. He just said, don't worry, you'll get there one day. Don't worry, don't stress. And his dad's the coach. So, his dad was really hard on him and very, really strict. But I said, yeah, you'll be fine. You'll see. Your dad knows what's right for you. And 1 year with us, and he was picked up with the Mariners, and away he went. So he's brilliant. He's having, he's very happy. We're happy for him too. The club's happy for him. Everyone's happy.
That's brilliant. And just for our UK,
that's what I aim for. Try to win trophies, but try to produce young guys as well.
No, that's brilliant. And just for our UK listeners, sort of to get an idea of how it sort of works, sort of Club Marconi in terms of training. How many nights do you guys train when obviously training's permitted at the moment? Time of this recording, when obviously Sydney's in lockdown, but when you can train, how many nights a week?
So we're a NPL 1 club, which is a division underneath the A-League, which is the National League.
Yeah.
Once upon a time, Marconi were 5-time national champions. They were in the National League. There's been a division change, and now it's called A-League, and we're in the NPL. We train 3 times a week, and we play on the weekend. Sometimes we train 4 times a week. We might have a video session or a recovery session.
Brilliant.
If we see that the players, because remember, they work. Most of them work. Except for the uni students, right? If you see that they're tired, we'll give them a night off. If you see guys who, like laying brick or they're panel beaters and painters, and they're coming to work and they're flat, you can't train. You can't destroy them. You can't put them through the ringer. You've got to really have a think about it. Maybe a light session. Give them Friday off, freshen them up, and we go for the weekend. So mainly 3 times a week, sometimes 4. But if you've got a stack of games like a cup game or postponed matches, because when it rains here, the fields get washed out. Your games bank up. So it's 3 to 4 times a week. It is.
And in terms of the I suppose the question in terms of how's in this lockdown here, Peter, how's it impacted the season? Is the season suspended or?
Yes, it's been suspended just last week actually.
Okay.
Last week they decided to to cancel the season for the rest of the year, and we're starting to prepare for next year with our recruiting and re-signing our players. Yeah, that's where we're at.
So all things being well, obviously eventually come out of lockdown and start playing again. Will the season start next year now?
Yeah, it'll start next year, probably March, like it always does.
Okay, yeah.
March, yeah, that's when we start. So, our comp has been cancelled with 5 games to go plus finals.
Wow.
So it's a long, you can say 10 weeks of the comp was left. So,
and
disappointment, but what do you do?
But no one was awarded like the first past the post type thing, nothing like that. Okay, yeah. Yeah.
No, nothing's been awarded yet. In the associations around the state, association football, like park football, some associations have named their premiers, whoever was coming first. Some haven't made a decision yet. But in NPL 1, 2, 3, the highest divisions, they haven't given premiers, or they just cancelled the competition as it stood.
Until obviously further not yet. So when it starts again the season, it'll be from the beginning, the clean sort of slate type thing.
Yeah, it'll be a new season altogether. This season's finished and done.
Yeah.
All contracts will be probably cancelled in September, and then players will be all renegotiating for their clubs or their new clubs.
Yeah, and in terms of the pre-season, let's say all things being well, we've lockdown, come out of lockdown. When roughly do you guys? I mean, you mentioned you start planning now. In terms of the pre-season, when do you generally begin that, Peter?
We start around December.
Yeah.
December, then you have that little 8-day break for, say, Christmas Eve till January 3rd, to let some of the guys let some steam off. And then you bring them back, and you've got 2 months before the comp starts. Usually starts first week of March.
Yeah, yeah. And do you guys have sort of scope, Peter, for like professional players to play full time, or is it just that's just not possible?
Look, some of most players at Marconi have jobs.
Yeah.
The ones who don't are studying.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I believe that some of their wages you maybe could not. You don't have to work, but a lot of our players, they're married.
Of course,
they have families to feed. Yeah, so they educate themselves. I think if you've been an A-League player and you're on your way down in the end of your career, maybe you're in your 30s, and you come down to playing to an NPL, most of them want to work. They don't want to just sit around.
Of course, yeah.
And the kids are going to uni hoping that, yes, I'd love to play A-League, but if I don't,
got a career to fall back. Yeah.
Studies.
Absolutely.
And they're the type of players we want. I think in the past, too many players were, not working and just having fun, playing football. But then when the football stops, you've got nothing to fall back on.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's when the mental health issues arise.
Yeah, absolutely. So having that purpose and routine for sure. 100%. Have some routine and absolutely, and that's really So say to see all things being well, the season March, and roughly when would the season finish for you guys? Run till sort of take it.
It usually finishes last week of September. Last week of August, early September, just depending on when it starts in March.
Sure, yeah.
So if it starts the first week, they usually finish it first week of September. Yeah, around there. And
just you mentioned like the finals, just for our UK listeners who might not be familiar with sort of semi-finals and sort of grand finals, and just.
Okay, yeah. So we have a top 5 series, final 5.
Yeah.
And 5 and 4 play off. That's an elimination match. So the loser goes out straight away. 2 plays 3, and the winner of that will play the team that came first to go into the grand final. The team who comes first has the week off, waiting. So then the team who's won out of 4 and 5 plays the loser of 2 and 3.
Yeah.
It's an old final 5 system.
Yeah, no, it's interesting.
They used to use it a lot in rugby league.
Yeah,
in NRL here.
Yeah, it's been brought into rugby league here as well. So, for our listeners who sort of follow rugby league, it's Salford being the team in this area, that they'll be familiar with that for sure. Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah. Yes. But there's no sort of promotion. Is there relegation or?
Yes, there is relegation, but this year there was going to be a promotion for 4 teams, and now that's all been put on hold. So the Federation has made a decision not to promote. So I feel for the teams in Division 2 because they've all outlaid money to get promoted. 4 of them were supposed to go up.
Okay, wow.
So there's issues there. There's going to be... look, I think there'll be issues. I work at a ground where Hakoa were running in the top 4, so they want to be promoted. So there could be issues for the Federation, but I'm staying out of it.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And sort
it's got nothing to do with us.
No, absolutely.
Division coming up to Division 1.
No, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. But for you guys to sort of, do you think there'll be scope? I mean, is there sort of, there's not just for our listeners, obviously the A League is the league above you guys. There's no scope to be promoted for the NPL 1 team? No.
No, there's no promotion to the A League, but they have brought in new teams, new franchises.
Oh, okay, yeah.
There is a lot of talk about a B League starting at the end of, I think it's next year. The years have come so quick now with this pandemic.
Yeah.
They want to have a B League. So all the big NPL clubs, financially viable, would probably want to be in this league.
The B League,
our club would want to be in it.
Absolutely, yeah.
There's a lot of big clubs like Sydney United, Sydney Olympic, and Adelaide City, South Melbourne, and Heidelberg. All the old NSL clubs would, I think, be gearing themselves up to find money to play in the B League.
No, absolutely. So that would be an opportunity then for clubs to go up and down from the A League 1, A League B type thing.
I'm not sure how they're going to structure it, but they definitely want a B League. They definitely want a B League.
Yeah. I suppose that would give some motivation.
And for me personally, I'd love a B League too, because I've coached in this division for a long time, and I just love something.
Yeah, absolutely.
It'd be great for the players
to test themselves.
All the players who are now 20, 21, not playing A League, too good for NPL, have got somewhere to go to. So it'd be interesting.
Just on that, Peter, what I find interesting, you mentioned there, what's the infrastructure like of say the NPL 1 club like the Marconi in terms of the age groups? I mean, over here it's been a bit contentious. I have to admit I wasn't for it. They sort of took away the 23s, but how do you guys sort of... Some of the clubs took away the 23s over here. Yeah.
Look, it's all age. It doesn't really matter your age for the first team.
Yeah.
I find you've got to have a mix. You can't have an older team because they'll run out of legs at the end of the year.
But do you guys have under 23s, Peter, as well, or do you have a reserve team?
We have an under 20s league.
Okay. Yeah.
18s, 20s, first team. There's no restrictions on the first team. No.
Of course, yeah. But under the first team, there's no reserve team, nothing like that. There's just straight to under 20s.
Yes, straight to under 20s, and you can have 4 overaged players per game.
Okay. In under 20s, yeah, that's it, yeah.
Yeah, so 4 of your guys who miss out in the first team, they can play in the 20s.
Yeah. And the guys in the 20s...
Mostly your 20s teams are young, like 17 to 20-year-olds.
So they'll be at school and college, yeah.
Yeah, you want to promote them and put them through the system and try to get them to first grade as your youth players, instead of bringing other players from other clubs, paying big money, and then you're blowing out your budget. The more you produce in your own club, the less money you're going to spend.
Of course, yeah. No, absolutely. That's really interesting stuff. I mean, that's really interesting for our listeners, really, because obviously the structure of the clubs in terms of feeding to the first team and and 20s, and so you got the under 20s. So I suppose at least you've got the option to play 4 overage players in the 20s, maybe players who haven't developed physically or mentally. They could just hang in there for a bit and see how they go, and
they can keep fit, or players coming back from injury.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, there's all sorts of issues there.
I think interesting stuff, and I suppose it's been really interesting speaking to you. It's been fascinating, really, really informative, and we've covered a lot. But in terms of yourself now, if you were to if there's any advice you would give yourself when you're first starting out, if you could sort of go back now, and I know it's with hindsight, but if you sort of could go back to speak to 17, 18-year-old Peter, what would you say from a football point of view?
Slow down.
Yeah.
Slow down. I was just going too fast, thinking way too ahead of myself. I thought, if I just slowed down, work harder, I'd listen to my peers. I was lucky I had some really good people around me to guide me around. But yeah, sometimes, for myself, I would say slow down. Don't be in a hurry. Don't be in a hurry. It'll all work out.
Yeah.
I sometimes say that to the young kids now, that they're in a hurry to play first grade, when I really want them to play first grade too, but they're just not ready.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and absolutely. And I mean, I think that's really interesting. And you mentioned before about sort of having to speak to players and the budget and having to let them go. And I mean, we have a variety of listeners who listen to the show, and we certainly have a lot of young players who listen in. And what would you? I know it's hard to give any advice. Everyone's different. But if any young players are listening and have been released at any club, be it NPL or be it in League 2 or wherever in the world, really, what would you say, Peter? Any player who's been released to sort of finding it, maybe falling out of love with the game or not sure what to do with the game. Personally, your experience.
There is a team. I would be saying there is a team for you.
Brilliant.
That's because you haven't been given a contract at Marconi or Salford. Doesn't mean just up the road at Sydney United there isn't a deal for you, or even a division lower. Don't lose your love for the game, because really, for you to have got this far, you must have talent.
Yeah.
You didn't get here by fluke. All it is sometimes you need a change of atmosphere, change of coach, maybe. You've got to go to a team where you're needed, and sometimes it doesn't fit where you are right now, but just up the road, it's only up the road, you'll find your fit.
Absolutely.
Personally, that happened with me, and I've told 5 players this week actually that you'll find a club. You're good enough. It's just not right at the moment for you here.
Absolutely.
You're good enough, and I've tried to steer them in the right way to the club that would need these guys.
Yeah. Or even finding their level, Peter. Do you think sometimes about players being true to themselves and saying, okay, I'll do the best I can and I'll enjoy the game at the highest level I can play?
Yes, you're 100% correct. You don't have to be an NPL 1 player your whole life. There's no problem playing in your championship or Division 1 in England and earning good money and being a pro footballer. For Australia, it's a little bit different. They'll have to work. But there's no harm in being an NPL 2 player and enjoying playing football, picking up some money, winning trophies, enjoying your life, enjoying the game that you love. Seriously, you don't have to give it away because you're not playing at the highest level. I remember there were some good young players around my age that were way, way, way better than me. Because they didn't make it the first year to first grade, they quit, they retired. And me, I just battled on. I battled and battled until I got a gig. Where these guys were way better than me, they never played a minute. They just gave it up. I can't understand that. When I think back how good they were compared to, I was nowhere near their ability, but I just kept going.
Absolutely,
until I played. I got somewhere. I found somewhere that I fit in.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's a really good take. I think that's really important. You find your level. And I suppose in the end, for some people, they might think, well, the game's not for them, and they move on and to a different sport or maybe a different career, then fair enough. But certainly, if you that sort of feeling of rejection and lack of belief, and for sure, just
Look, it's a lot harder to make it here in Australia than it would be in England because we don't have many teams. We only have 10 A-League teams. And then in the NPL, not all those teams are where you live. They don't pay you enough to move to that area.
Yeah.
You might live in Wollongong, which is an hour drive to an hour and a half to Marconi. You're not going to drive an hour and a half after work to come and train at 6 o'clock at night and drive back at 10 o'clock at night. So it's semi-pro football here. It's difficult to make it. And some kids just miss out and they quit.
Absolutely, yeah.
Where in Europe, you just go up the road.
Absolutely, there's a lot of clubs in proximity.
You get an agent, and your agent will shop you around with your videos. Where here, it's a lot harder because there's no teams. Look at our A-League youth structure. We don't have an A-League youth comp. We've had it like on and off. That's like the best of Australia doesn't have a youth league comp. We don't have a comp.
Yeah.
So, they get lost. They get lost in the system.
Absolutely,
That's what happens.
Yeah, no, it's interesting.
I say to your kids out there, just stay patient. You'll find a club. You'll find a coach that really likes you, and he'll believe in you, and he'll play you. It's as simple as that.
Brilliant. No, that's great. It's been a pleasure speaking to you, Peter. It's gone fast, and I'm sort of mindful of time, and I'm being very kind of you.
Pleasure's all mine, man. Pleasure's all mine.
No, it's been kind of you to join us.
Anytime if you want someone from Australia to talk to.
Yeah, it's been fantastic.
Chat with you is like fantastic from a guy like me sitting at home 9 weeks locked in. So I appreciate you calling me. I appreciate you reaching out to me, and I hope your callers enjoyed my call. What I spoke from the heart, and I'm just being honest, and I hope someone gets something out of it.
Absolutely.
And has enjoyed my chat with you.
Brilliant. Thanks, Peter. It's been great. That was Peter Papoythis, who's joined us the way from Australia, who's been refreshingly honest and open about his own career as a player, as a coach, the challenges in lockdown, and many other things. And I'm sure we could have carried on speaking, but we're sort of drawing to close. And there was, Peter was kind enough to join us on Salford City Radio 94.4 FM, the Friday Sports Show with your host, Jimmy Petruzzi.